Hi, everybody. Thanks for those people who have left some notes on the YouTube channel and those who have subscribed. Hope the information that I'm sharing assists you guys in going forward. I just recall the days that I actually started getting into a bit of 3D. I used to do a double flip when I could actually add a shiny surface onto a box. I had absolutely no idea how it all worked. So everything that I've functioned through over the years have been sort of self-taught through YouTube, learning through YouTube, and I'd like to give a bit back into the YouTube space for those people who are into 3D or want to learn a bit more. So what I'm about to share with you is nothing on the basis of a specific tutorial, but just my experience with this one client that I was busy doing a project for. And I had to do this project basically in a day. I would say a day and a half maximum. It's a advertising company, and they needed to do a pitch to a client, and they needed this work stat. So sometimes you have to stretch yourself, and for jobs like that, there's nothing better than SketchUp. But I always used to find that even though I did it in SketchUp, when I came to the render part, I was always limited in that I had to either use V-Ray in SketchUp or Thea Render, which was brilliant, but time-wise, just to have one visual used to take forever, and lighting and creating realistic lighting and all that used to be quite a effort for me. Now, I would attribute that to a lack of my knowledge of the tools, but I always look for tools that are going to get me to the end result quicker and more effectively, and tools that are going to support my way of thinking. And that's why I've basically been using Unreal Engine, or starting to learn to use Unreal Engine. So the project was what you're seeing here. This is the photo they gave. It's at a motorway. So there are tracks on the outside, but they were having an event in this space that they gave, and this is the floor space that they took a photo of, and this is the space that they have to use to do an activation. It's related to digital things and going forward in the future. So they have a pitch that they're planning in the future if they win this section of the whole deal with the client. So this wasn't about being into specific detail, but it was to give the client a bit of a feel of how they are going to be setting up the area and how they're going to be dealing with things. So this was the one picture they sent to me, and I had to work off this picture. My brief was, do what you can. We want to have an experience that when they come in, which is this doorway at the bottom, there's an opening here. When they come in, they must have experience of, seeing some old digital gaming photos up against or murals against the walls. And as they come into a space that's going to be more with today's digital gaming environment and so forth. But my strict instruction was not to get into too much specifics, but just to give the kind of light layout. And I was given a bit of creative, decisions in how I could lay it out. Time was against us. Like I said, it was basically almost a day that I only had to do it. And the only tool that I could rely on to do quick modeling was, of course, my favorite, SketchUp. And I was tempted to go to other programs like my C4D and all that, but they'll never be as fast as SketchUp can be. So I opened up SketchUp, and I knew Unreal is going to be the place that I want to go. So as I use Unreal for different projects, I learn new things along the way. So I'm going to be sharing that with you. So here we have a picture. I could complain that I don't have enough information, but I thought, let me take what they've given me and let me show them what we're able to do. So took the picture, and then I got down to working with the model. So basically I created the SketchUp model. So if you look at it here, that was the door at the bottom. These are the pillars, and then I created. Now, people might be tempted to go look for models that look similar, etc. For some people, you might think it's going to take too long to even build this up, because there's one old window in here and these frames that I've built in here. But it's worth it. You'll eventually learn to model much faster and faster over time. So I've used the tools, built up the garage doors, the windows, but simulated what we had in that environment. and these are the pillars. The importance of the pillars was to ensure that the positioning of different things would fit in. And then there were key elements. If I looked at the picture, I wanted to make sure that if you look, there's white pillars, but there's black beading at the bottom. Now the doors are not that essential to start getting metal looks and all that. And I'll tell you why later because of how they wanted constructed. But the pillars had these kind of black areas at the bottom, which was significant for that environment. So I did include building that in there. Okay, so we got the modeling up and running. And I've just moved the, sorry for the fast movement, I've just moved the roof out of the way. So when they told me I needed to send the photo, I built the unit. And the reason for that is because sometimes, you know, if they just want one visual and they say, okay, take this visual, oops, where is it now? Take the visual and place something in it. And this is going to be the only one. Then you do that. You use this as a background and you comp the 3D model into it and create shadows for drop shadows. But I realized that I can't create a mood with this because I can't turn around in this place. I had to recreate the model. So I learned from a young guy who worked with me a while back. He used to get a logo coming through and he had to redo the logos. And sometimes the logo was a good enough quality, but he'd always draw the logo out. He'll redo it in Illustrator so that he always has the model to work with. And I used to think it's a waste of time, but I realized if you recreate the model, you have better control, which I did in this case. So we had this model and I put all the pieces together, roof and everything. And now all of these little pieces here, some of them I could get from the warehouse. Like these little pod things here, I redone the car areas, the racing car areas I got from the web because I didn't have time to go and recreate my own. Let me see what else. Oh, these overhead light things I created myself because it was relatively simple. You had a banner that went, a metal thing that went across, and these rods you could create one and then just duplicate it. And I created these lights so that I could just duplicate it. Now, I could get lights off the 3D warehouse, but the problem is sometimes it's not constructed clean. And then when you take it into Unreal, the maps are all messed up. So all this was it's a tube with a facing on this side because I need this to be my light. So it's a tube with a facing and a little pivot area over here and rolled up. So this is the simple light unit, and then I created a component and just duplicated it. So that's what I did in, and the seating I got from the warehouse and cleaned that up because it was a bit messed up with the materials all lying all over. And I'm not going to spend time showing you how I went through all that cleaning, but just enough to say that I used this tool, which is in one of the other tutorials that I did, SketchUp UV mapping. I basically clicked on that, made it, exploded everything, exploded it through, removed all the materials, did the UV mapping on there, and just pasted a single color material on there. So there's no textures on there, there's no images that are mapped onto that. It was just a color. For the purpose that I needed, I didn't need leather on there, anything, it just had to be a color. So each of these units I basically built and put into that space. So that's what we had, and then what the client came back with is that we needed to create the mood. So I just did these partitions. I did them inside and placed them there, and then on the partitions I placed the actual visuals. So if you walk through the place, you'll have, this was the visuals on the one wall, and on the other wall, so this was like gaming with pixelated gaming. And as you got into the other environment, this is where you're going to have the more modern gaming taking place. But what I did is build these walls with these banners on and placed them in front, sort of skinned it in front of the actual wall. So I didn't put textures on the actual walls because on these sides here, there's garage doors, so you couldn't stick anything on. So I basically created partitions right around so that we could isolate the area. So in essence, I'll pull it together and just move that over, what was that, 40? Yeah, into position. And I think these were also all 40 I moved away. So I regularly do this if I want to move models away. I don't still put it on layers and hide it and all that. I just select the stuff I want to. I move it on an axis in a direction and type 30, 40 or 50 just to move them together. So when I want them back, I basically press M for move. I keep them on the axis, and I think I was 40 away. Yep. So and in the roof area, I think I went on 20. Was that 20? No, I think it was 50. That's him. Okay, so that's what I created, and I'll just go inside the scene. Let's see. Okay, it's going to be a bit confusing here because now all these things are in the way. But like I said, I created it blank first, and then I started building up all these other elements into it. So that's the way I went about it. Now I know I've got full control. The one other thing that I've learned, and this might help you, is that in the past, what I would do is I'd take this entire thing, and I know that Unreal sees a group. So if I make a group, it brings it in almost as a separate object if I want to do any sort of materials or texturing on it. So I would take this whole thing, make sure the groups are together, then I export this as an OBJ and take it into Unreal. Load it in Unreal, wait for a little while it's pulling everything in. And then the first time I run the lighting on it, it tells me that there are UV maps that are overlapping, and it gives me a whole long list, and I used to get frustrated because I'm like, okay, now which one is it? And I have to look and then go and try and sort it out. What I've learned from this project is if I'm doing a project of this nature, I have them in the groups as per usual, but I start off with the core things. In this place here, the core things would be the floor, would be the basic walls. So let me just move this out of the way. I'll show you now. I would basically take these walls. So if I click on these outside walls, I've grouped the entire structure without the windows and the garage doors and anything. I take that, and that's one group, and I'll export it into Unreal. I'll take it individually, bring it into Unreal, test it in Unreal, see if there's no UV maps that are messed up and so forth. If everything is in order, then I know, okay, that is sorted, and that's how I went through it. I read up about moving your stuff independently as individual objects, and it always bothered me because I thought, like, that's a painful way of doing it. But trust me, with this entire project, this was my lifesaver. I decided from the start to do it, and it really helped because picture it this way. If I take this specific outside area in and there's a problem, I can always come back here to SketchUp and try and resolve the UVs or try and resolve the model. Maybe there's one face that is reversed, and that's why when I take it into Unreal, it's transparent. Because if your faces are inverted, it will be transparent in Unreal. I can sort out all the nigglies. Then once I have that, I have the foundation of the wall. I take the floor, exactly the same thing. And I took them out independently, all the big units, and then when I had them settled in Unreal, I could come in, and if I had to bring in, let's say the seating area, if I had to bring the seating area in, now I would move the seating area alone into Unreal, and if there's a problem, I can come back here, sort it out, export it again, and then re-import it into Unreal until I solve that problem. Once that problem's solved, then I know this sofa or this couch area is now working in Unreal, and it's not having overlapping maps, and it's not going to interfere with the rest of my model. In that way, I could do, like if I have 4 sofa areas or 3 sofa areas, I can perfect one and just take it into Unreal and then duplicate it in Unreal. I don't have to take all 3 as it is here. Same thing with all the objects. And very soon I found out that I'll actually populate my entire model in Unreal with all the different units, and they all will be functioning effectively. There won't be any that's breaking the light maps or anything when I render it inside Unreal. For example, I had the models, and when I got this off the 3D warehouse, I thought it was quite a neat one. When I took it in, there were a few of the UV maps that were overlapping, and it was pulling up an error, but an error of like 3.1%. And I could overlook that because, you know, it was going to maybe keep a dark area in a strange place when it, you know, when the maps were recreated. So I could deal with that. That was fine for me. And in that way, I knew, okay, this model worked. There were some other SketchUp 3D warehouse models that I brought in that I wanted to use. When I took it over, it was just, it almost came out like black. The patchiness, the maps weren't working well. I came into SketchUp, tried to sort it out, and they were giving too much problems. And I thought, no, this model wasn't designed effectively and clean, so I'm not going to spend energy on it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. So I did a lot of the processes first, getting the big basic things and then the smaller ones into the space. And I'll show you the process that helped me to even speed that up. If you go, for example, say we're going to click on this gaming unit here, this arcade game. What I've done is I went into File. Oh, just remember, there are a lot of other programs, third-party programs, who have OBJs, importers and exporters. I think SketchUp 2017 Pro comes with a OBJ exporter. If not, I think it comes with, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it comes with Quad Face Tools, which is a free, what do you call it, what they call it, plugin or extension. So if you install Quad Face Tools, it brings in a OBJ export, and that one works quite nice. The others I found they flip faces, and they particularly didn't work too well for me. So you can see I've got OBJ exporter, and this was from one of the other developers, but it didn't seem to work well. So I just used the one that Quad Face puts into the normal export file menu. So what I do is I go to Export 3D Model. I go to the OBJ for export. Then I go to Options. And on Options, I make sure that Export Only Current Selection and Texture Maps. And of course on centimeters. Then I'll say, okay, got that settings over there. So that settings are important. Then what I've done is I went into, where's this? My settings, my preferences. In my preferences, I went to shortcuts, and if you go to export, just the normal export here, file export to 3D, you see I assigned it to X. And the reason I did that was because it could streamline the whole process. So if I'm here now and I want to export this model, I'll click on it, I'll press X, and it will pop up for me. And it will ask me what the name is of the file. I'll name it, and everything else will be the same. I don't have to go into options again because SketchUp defaults to the last settings that we had. If you look, they'll all be the same there. Then I'll just do export. So I put it into a specific folder. Let me just go in here. So I had OBJs in the clients folder, and here you'll see all the OBJs that I put in there. And give them a name that you know that will be descriptive when you look at them to take them into Unreal. Like this one, I think I called Arcade. Yeah, Arc 1, Arc 2, Arc 3. Those are the 3 units. I put them as individual ones when I took them out. That was just what I didn't have to do it. I could actually do them only one and then drag the others along. It was just an option that I had. Okay, so that's what I did to do the export. So the process was quick. If I wanted to export this VR head, I'll select it. I'll press X, give it the name, save it. Of course, I must make sure it's in that same folder. And it will default to the same folder where you save the first file. Then it will go there all the time. So that's a quick workflow. Now, let's just go into the model here. Okay, so you can identify now. Okay, in the process, I created a track that I was busy kind of using along the way, and I put a, oops, what did I do there? And I did a texture in there. Okay, so let me just move this and hide this area. And you can pretty much see what's going on in here. So it was this same setup over there. So here, let me just, if I wanted to now put this particular model in, what I do also is, yeah, I've got VS. I'll go in and into my model section, and in my model section I created folders. So I'll have a folder that's descriptive of everything. So yeah, I can see on the couch, there's the couch, there's the building, the barriers that I did, etc. Now say I want to bring in, okay, let me do this. I'm going to create an independent, or let me do this, because I think I did take the cart, but I didn't include it in the visual for the client. So I'm going to take this cart, it's in this position. The beautiful thing is, if I work in the SketchUp environment and I'm moving the models here, if I export it from here and take it into Unreal, it will position itself exactly on the model where I have it here. So my SketchUp model is the kind of working environment, and it will place. So if I want to move the model, I do it in SketchUp, export it. Those coordinates are taken with the model when it goes across. So I'm going to take this. Now I've selected it. And if I look at my Unreal, it most likely will, where it will place the car somewhere down. Yeah. Let me just get down here. So it will place the car somewhere down here. So now I go to SketchUp, and I've got the model selected. I'm going to press X. And let me just find that folder as the first one. And I work with OBJ. I'm going to call this Mario car. Okay, hopefully I haven't got another one like that. I'm going to say export. And I'll say OK. And then we go over here. Now I'm going to go in and right click, and I'm going to create a folder. Call that Mario car, just to keep the models nice and neat, separated. And I'll go import. Where are we? Okay, I was busy in exporting some other stuff. So there's the Mario car. Oh, I did the other one was Mario Kart. So there's Mario car, and say open. When it comes in here, just important here, sometimes you're going to have a model that you really don't want to touch. It's all fine. You're happy with how it is. You can actually click this button down here and click Combine Meshes. That actually just keeps all the meshes, and you have one model that will appear here rather than having 5-10 different pieces. Now, if it's a part that I'm going to manipulate different sections, then by all means I uncheck this and it will come in its different parts. But this little car, it's just going to be a placeholder there. It's going to just, for visual sake, I'm not going to be editing any textures on it. And if the textures are messed up, they're going to be messed up, basically. So I'm not too fussy about it. I'm going to just want it to come in as one mesh. Usually this is unchecked. Okay, then you make sure also that you generate UV maps are always checked there, because SketchUp will send it in with a UV map, and Unreal will generate a second UV map so that it can use it when it does the lightmaps and lightmap renderings. So if I check this here now, and let me pop this up, and I'm going to say import. So now I can guarantee myself that there's only one physical model and it won't come in as pieces. Okay, this thing is telling me the color names and all that, but I can ignore that. Here we see it in the bottom here, there's materials, and there's the one model. Now the key thing here is I'm going to drag it into the spot, but as you see it, the program doesn't know where it needs to be go to. I'm just dragging it somewhere. So when I push it in there and let go, because this is just one model and it's not pieces, if it was a lot of pieces, I would have select those pieces and click the folder, and it would include them all into the folder and maybe name the folder Mario Kart. But because it's just one, I'll just leave it on its own. The key part now is, while you have it selected, you go to the details page and you go to the first section that says transform, and you say location. Because you've dragged it into a random space, it places it there. What you've got to do is set this to 0, 0, 0, and then it will default to that exact spot where the model was in your SketchUp model. So all the models that you bring in individually, you do this for. You go there, you click 0, tab 0, tab, can you see there, it's shifted to that spot there. The other thing that you might notice is that the pivot point is a little bit off the actual model. One way to get it on there when you want to move it around or rotate it is just to right click on the model and scroll and go to pivot and say set pivot offset over here. Okay, and you click there and it will put the pivot there, but that's a temporary setting. I still have to work out how to lock that permanently in there. I've just been lazy to work out that system, but once you've got it on, you could basically move the model. Now you'll notice what is happening. It's busy compiling the shaders. It will tell us now that the UV map of this particular model is either correct or it's broken or whatever. But I don't wait until the program really tells me that. Once I have it selected, I go right click on it and I go to edit Mario Kart. If I click on there, it will show me the edit window. I can click on reset camera. It will take me to sort of frame the actual car. Now you can see this is a very low polygon, but there's something crazy happening with all the textures on here. But like I said, I'm not taking this time to show, you know, UV mapping and all that. I'm just showing you how to get the models in and how I did that. If you look here in the top left section, it says UV map channel 2. There you can start smiling. At least there's 2 UV maps. If it comes in as a UV map 1, often the maps are quite messed up. So then we go to UV maps on top here. You pop it down. You can look at 1 and see what 1. That's what 1 looks like. Very messed up. Let's see what Unreal has done with the second UV map, where it's been able to not have any of the maps overlapping. Let's click on 2 on channel 1. And there it's beautifully what Unreal has done. It's taken that messed up UV maps and placed it all in correct spots here. It might not have the textures looking totally correctly on the model itself, but at least there's no conflicting textures that are crossing each other. As soon as they overlap, you're going to have problems when you do a light rebuild. Okay, so here you'll be happy that it wouldn't create any problems from the system. Just a word here that I'm quite excited about. I think it's called Datasmith. In the future releases with Unreal, they're working on the Datasmith system, which is basically to be able to import models from different CAD programs and have that process smooth so that you don't have to worry about compatibility and UV maps issues. I assume that it will deal with all things, including SketchUp's models. It would be lovely just to have a SketchUp importer that's going to correct all of the issues that we had before. But what we've checked now is that it's nice. Now what I do is if I check this model and there's no second UV, or the second is overlapping each other, these little UV maps are overlapping each other, I immediately go back to SketchUp and try and sort it all out there. Make sure I can get something sorted out there. I've got a lot of UV unwrapping softwares, but like I said in my other sessions, I want to avoid using other stuff. I want to try and stay within SketchUp, because then everybody can feel comfortable working in the software. You don't have to invest in another third-party software. So I can quite confidently say that when I render lighting in this area, I won't have any problems there. Okay, so there's my little car in that spot. I am going to now show you just what I've been doing and how I'm able to get visuals. I've set in my settings, I go to project settings. Now usually in my project settings I usually go switch in the render section. Where are we? In the render section I usually switch the auto exposure. This auto exposure, I usually switch this off, because when I'm working with lighting, this kind of adjusts like your eye would adjust in a dark room. You would start lightening up, and I used to feel that it's maybe doing a bit of an overkill. However, if you have this on, you can override it by putting in your actual post-processing in the model, and then set the exposure there. You can set the level at which it goes, responds to very dark and very light and all that. But in this model, I needed a bit of auto exposure because I'm going into a dark environment that I'm creating, and I wanted to light up for me to capture a visual. So I have that as on there. Then let me just see where we are here. So that's how I brought the models in. All of these pieces did exactly the same. One thing I found out is, like with this one wall, when I imported it, the image didn't come on. And I was wondering why, but when I looked at it, there's a certain resolution of an image that if it's bigger than that, Unreal Engine doesn't import it in, and it leaves the texture off. So all I did was go back to SketchUp, made sure the size of the image was smaller, and you don't have to get too worried that it, this was 21 meters long, that it has to be 2,100, 21,000 pixels. Just do 2,100 pixels by 350. It will come out fine in the model. So you don't have to proportionately increase your picture, else you're going to have a 16 meg picture just on one wall. So try and optimize those things, and else Unreal will not import that picture because it will consider it too big. Okay, so that's how I got it into the Unreal environment. Then the things that I think are essential is your lights. When you're putting lights into a scene, if you're going to be doing sort of quick visuals and capturing of things, I choose my lights now. I've got an i7, and I put my lights all, when I click on light, you go to transform. You can put it on static, but as soon as you get over 3-4 lights that are set on static, then you're going to find a little X comes onto the light, because it can't do more than, I think, 4 or 5 static lights in a scene. And to see the static lights effect, you've got to build a light, and then it burns in the light maps, and then if you change them around, you've got to do it again. For gaming, that's probably quite essential because there's so many levels that they move through. But for these kind of visuals, I put all my lighting onto movable, so it's in real time. So if I take a light now here and I drag it in here, I'll see the light immediately, and I'm going to just pop up the brightness of it. I can see the light react, and you see it's on static here. I just put it on movable, and it might drag a little slightly slower, but it real time reacts and shows what is visible. And if you have that functioning, you could actually do renders. Once your light is built once, you can start working with it, because it's detecting that when you move lights, that the lighting is going to be correct, the shadows are going to be accordingly correct. So all my lighting I put in there. I put in with them being actually, what did I say, movable? Spotlights. See, I forget what I say here. Let me just check here. My point lights, yeah. I set it all to movable. Okay, and then of course the power and the color is all in that space. There are a lot of other things that you could adjust along the way, and I'm not going into that specifically. I just wanted to show you this. Then the other thing that I've learned was, in SketchUp you have scenes. You could go, I've got a shortcut key for my scenes or creating scenes. I think it's Shift S creates a snapshot. So if I wanted to create a snapshot, I press Shift and S, and it creates an extra scene. But I was wondering how you do at least some sort of scene thing inside of Unreal, and it's pretty easy. I think you can have up to 10 scenes, and you just go Control and the number. So Control 1, Control 2, Control 3, and then when you want to access that visual from that side, you just press the number. So I've set up, hopefully it works now as I opened 1 to 9 and then 0. So I press 1, there we go. If I press 2, it takes me a bit forward. So you basically can, if you're going to move your camera till this point now and you're going to press Control 2, it will remember this as a camera position. So I do this because, and I'm able to go through the scene and go do photos of the different sections as I went through the scene. Okay, so I'm going to just put the roof on, and what the roof is going to do is close off the area and just let the internal lights start to do their work. The beauty of what I've discovered now is that when I set the light to movable, it reacts, the textures all respond, the reflections all respond in real time, and I can build the light maps up once. I'll go to build here up here and create the light maps, and I can choose the quality to be production level when I'm ready to do my screenshots, and that's about it. So it's not like I've got to render each shot and wait for them as such. I'll show you how I do the actual screenshots. So I'm going to come and click on there again. Oh, the other thing is, with these items showing your lights and everything over here, they're showing over there, but if I press G, which is the gaming perspective, it will remove all those lighting areas from the visuals. Now this light here at the back is actually just it's an asset, it's a model over there. It's not one of Unreal's lights. In the lighting section over here, I've just put in this disk. I selected that and chose the material and made it an emitter material, so it will appear like it's lit. But in essence, I've got let's see where we got. All my light units are positioned on different spaces. So there you can see my light unit, and that's because I've got G pressed again. If I press G again, all of those will disappear. Okay, let me drop my ceiling on and then start showing you how I prep the visuals. And here it's actually quite awesome in that when you close off the environment like the real environment, then the lighting just tends to work better, because the client wanted some mood lighting to show. So I'm going to put the roof on, and there immediately, can you see what happens? Kind of beautiful in there. You can see it starts to light up because that's the auto exposure setting. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to just go in and I'm going to say, well, maybe I should just go and do a full build. I know now if I do the build, there's not going to be problems with my textures, except maybe, as I explained, maybe these arcade units and one or two other things that have got some minor things that will have overlapping maps, but it wouldn't be that crucial that will change the visual appeal of the unit that I'm busy using. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pause and just start again when it's finished, done its job there. The other thing I just wanted to show, something that I wasn't aware of. If you look at the bottom, when you're busy doing a render, it shows Swarm Agent. I saw that in my back end when I was looking in the Windows environment, and I was wondering what it is. But it's basically the render. And if you double click it, it's the render engine that's busy doing all its creations. It starts to run the light maps, and you can see an export scene, light maps starting, emitting photons, collecting photons. This is the kind of render engine back end that's happening here. I haven't got my head around the whole light mass explanation yet. In most cases you have there's a V-Ray engine and an Arnold engine and I'm not sure if this is a light mass engine or a Swarm Agent engine, but this kind of all works together for the greater good of the visual. Just thought I'd share that. And you access it by, when it starts to run a build of your scene, you'll see it come on the bottom area here, this little Swarm Agent. Like I said, when you double click it, you can see all the stats that go with it. And I better not touch any of these things because I don't know too much about what's going on there. But just thought I'd show that to you. Okay, I think I'm going to just show you. Let me just close this off. Is it this one? Yeah. I thought I'd just show you the error log here. Here you can see the errors that are coming now. Server 1 and Server 2, those were two sort of components that we brought in with TV screens and computer screens, which was a bit messy when it came in, and I eventually excluded it from the model itself. The Sim 1, these are those simulators, those racing simulators that we had in. They seem to have some problems with the meshes, so we will see what comes of them. If it shows us that there's overlapping meshes, these units that I have here aren't that crucial. When I brought it in, I saw these problems and looked at the visual after I rendered it, and it didn't look too bad, so I thought I'd leave them in the scene and just deal with the errors that they are. All the other models are, of course, clean models that I've made sure that they were sorted out when I brought them in. If not, I went to clean them up, as I say, in SketchUp using UVs, the SketchUp UV, or just doing, if I couldn't clean it up effectively, I just didn't use it in the entire process. Okay, so it's still busy building the lighting. Let's see. So yeah, it will carry on building lighting, but this is the scene we've got. So if we want to take visuals, there's just other things that I've noted that were important. Your sky sphere is the thing that gives you the clouds outside and the light and that sort of thing. And it's set up in different ways. And the key things for outside lighting is your sky sphere, your skylight, which basically acts as all lighting inside environments that would be there naturally. So what I've done is I've chosen an HDR, and I'm not going to go too much in detail of that. I made sure the resolution is the highest that I can get it on. But yeah, if you wanted to change the effect of the intensity inside, I'll just show you this here. If I go and I put this as 0, you'll see it will have an effect on the inside. It will show that there's almost no kind of ambient light. So your skylight is actually quite important, even if you're using internal lights. Like this environment here, you can see there's internal lights, but you want a bit of kind of almost, in a way, kind of a global illumination. And the skylight tends to add that kind of realism. So, I mean, I've only got 0.05. But it adds a bit of light. If you want to even go further than that, you could do that. And in it, you see 0.005, but at least it creates more of a lively ambience in there. That actually pretty much looks quite much more to the point that we want to get. So remember that when you're doing interior lighting and it's totally dark, you put your normal lights in. If I go and I click the G here, you'll see all my lights. So I'm going to take this light, and you can see it, they're moving in real time. So you can take your lights and put them in there. I press G again to remove it, but to create the kind of ambient glow and reflectivity of the lights and bouncing of lights, I find that setting the actual, where is it now? Okay, setting the skylight setting is about the best there. If I'm not using an HDR, this HDR is just defaulted. If I go and I go look for an HDR, it's defaulting to the HDR that comes in Unreal. I think I might have brought it in with the starter pack or something on that nature. But that's just a HDR. If I remove that, then it will use the normal outside sunlight, the light that one gets here, the directional light that you put into the scene. So I've got a directional light. My skylight, you'll notice also, to the point, is also movable. So it has its real-time effect. Okay, so my skylight is movable, and my directional light and all my spots are all movable. And trust me, I've got an i7 and 8 megs of RAM, which is not, it's not a lot. It's got a 940 graphics card in it. So it's a laptop that's kind of, it's good enough, but it's not your high-end desktops that are able to handle lots more processing power. And my one handles it quite smoothly, absolutely no problems with it. So I prefer having all my lights on movable because I can get real-time feedback. Now, the lights are building here. I'm going to just wait until the lights are totally done before I show you how I do my actual visuals, which I gave the stills for the client. I also did a video, but I'm not going to cover that in this session. I maybe cover it in the next session when I have some time to sit down and discuss that. But the client wanted actual stills, 3 stills that they wanted to show the actual entrance area, what it would look like, then they would also want to add the area where the people are sitting, where those sofas are, and then the car area where the simulators are. Like I said, once they get it approved of this entire thing, then they'll go into specifics. Then they'll give me the actual things to put on the walls, the actual gaming centers we need to create, whether we need to create a PlayStation station and put it up there. Then I'll specifically model that a bit closer and spend time with that. So this was just that kind of concept space. So we'll just wait till the lighting is completely built, and then I'll show you how I do the high resolution screenshots for the client. And I never knew how to do that. I used to use, what was it, Unity, and to do screenshots you had to download a piece of code from the sort of store, put it in. It was a bit of a mission, and when I came to Unreal I thought, okay, what's the mission here? And it's as simple as a little drop down button, and you can render a visual of the screen, double the resolution, treble the resolution, or whatever you require. Okay, so let me just pause the video and wait for this lighting to complete. Okay, we've finished now with the building of the light maps and everything. We did a full render at production level. Let's just have a quick look at here so that you don't panic. I can say that I'm aware of all of these because this is what happened right at the start when I brought in the individual units, and that's the power of doing it in different sections. I knew what was giving me the problems. I could have a look at it once we did a little render, and it looked fine, even with a little errors, and I could overlook that. So ARC was the arcade games that I mentioned. They have like 1.7% overlapping maps. It's really insignificant, unless it's quite obvious when you look at it, but not much. The couch has some overlapping UVs, but it doesn't show up that much. COP, that is that VR head, has some problems over there. The rails that are on top of the roof, they about the worst, 72%, but they up in by the ceiling, and it's totally dark there, so it's not going to, they're basically acting almost as placeholders for the drop lights there, and there's not going to be much visuals on them as far as lighting goes. So I don't have a problem with that. If it was in the eye of somebody, then I would really have to go and fix that up. So there's certain things that I'm aware of, but I know it's not going to have a great impact. 5.7, 1.7% overlapping, those aren't really too much issues. Okay, so I'm happy there. It's done its renders over there. So this is now with all the new lighting and that generated in. Now what we saw earlier with the lights where they were, that was pretty much close to the quality. When we click on rebuild all the textures, it's now just reinforcing all this lighting and ensuring that this lighting burns in at high quality and reflectivity and all that. So how do we take the visuals now as we get to the close of this little synopsis of what I did? The way that I go about doing it, and I'm sure it's supposed to be the correct way, is that you have a field of view here. When you have the drop down, you can zoom in or zoom out. Depends on how much you want to see when you take the snap. And then further down it says emissive mode. Now you can press F11, but sometimes because you're not framed in on the actual image or clicked on the image, you can't press the F11 because it's assumed you're working in any other area. And once you click on one part of the image like this here, then it makes the selection. And you can switch that off if you want to, this showing the selection. But I use it when I need to see where I'm going to with stuff. So to avoid this here, I'm going to press G and bring back all the lights and stuff. And I'll just click on one of the lights and then press G again, and that will disappear. So the selection is there, but now pressing G will make the actual lighting units inside the area switch off, so I don't see it. But the better way that I do it is I click down here and I just click immersive, and that will take me to the full screen mode. So this is the mode that I want to see, because this is what I'm going to be capturing as such. So if I'm happy with the lighting and so forth, if I'm not pleased with the lighting, I can always go back here and switch immersive off and go do the fiddling here. If I'm happy with it, I go and I click immersive, and now I've got this visual. So how do I take the still of this area? Same area, click down there, and here's a button that says high resolution screenshot. You click on that, and here you're going to, if I take a shot now, click here, it's going to take it this one screen size. So it's like a screenshot. If I go and I click and it goes to 2, it's going to take it at double this resolution, etc. And it just warns you that if you want to go with, 10 or so, it might just crash the computer, because then it's going to be a massive file size. So I'm going to take a screenshot now, and when I take a screenshot, it's going to give me a link here at the bottom where it's saving it to, and I can click there just to go look at the photo, and we can check that out if you want to. But it's usually in the same folder, in your project folder, there's a subfolder that it puts it into. So I'm going to click screenshot, and there we go, and I'm going to just click on that to open it so we can see it in the folder. Okay, which one is it now? Okay, for the sake of sanity, I'm going to just delete all of these because I'm not sure which one it is. Let me click it again. And let's open there, and that will be the one there. And if you're seeing a strange sort of triangle icon, I'm in the process of moving from Photoshop and Illustrator over to Affinity's Designer and Photo, which is a company called Serif. They the boys on the block now, setting the target higher now for Adobe, and they're brilliant piece of software. Now that's just a sideline thing, but I'm going to just open this in a browser, in my Google browser, so you can see what it looks there. Just to show you this is the image that we capture. So this is what I give to the client. This is the entrance that I give to the client, and they are able to navigate through getting this sort of resolution and this result. And that's a visual that I have now of it. I can get back to the game, and remember what I did? I pressed 2, and it took me to the next section. 3, these are my different snaps. To get it, it was Control 1, Control. When I move to the position, that's to lock in the cameras there. So I'm going to go to 5. This is as we're going into this environment. And here now, this is where can you see it starting to light up? So it's going a bit brighter. That's because my auto exposure is set. So the client wanted one of the seating area as you came in. Now, I looked at it and I wasn't kind of happy with the actual framing of the shot. And then all you do, because it's real time, you can rotate, maybe move a bit forward, get a bit of a better snap that covers more of the area. And this is just basically mouse navigation. If I'm happy with that, I'll let go of it, and then the auto exposure will kick in. You see it looks different now because it's got light on the right hand side that it's using for the camera to auto expose also. But if you're happy with that, then it's basically go to the drop down again, and you can say high resolution shot, and we'll just do it at 1x resolution, which will be the screen shape. And you don't have to worry about what's on the screen here. It doesn't take that into account. It just takes the image that you are busy shooting. And if we look there, I'm going to open that with Google Chrome. And there we have our second picture that we can give to the client. And that shows the client the picture there. Nice reflectivity, the lighting, everything. If I'm for some reason not happy with the light where they are there, I have the ability in this window. Remember, I press G to make all the things disappear. If I press G again, it will show me the lights, and then I can kind of still do a bit of editing. I can take this light and maybe move it. Can you see the shadows? Everything moves around. Everything, because the lights are not static lights, they react immediately. Now, once I've moved the lights to where I feel I want them to be, this is now the beauty of the movable lights, in that I don't have to go and do a re-render again for the purpose that I need it. I'm happy with how the lighting looks in this place. I press G to switch it off, and then I just go and do the recapture again. This has saved me, to get a visual like this in the, environment, if I have to go across now to here, if I have to get into this environment and go do a shot here, I've got to go click on my render engine, do the settings, make sure the lighting is all set up, the cones. It is a nightmare. So just to get a simple visual, and then when I move it again around, whether I've got to recompose the area, Unreal Engine is just, it's another paradigm that you function with. Like here now, if I want to take a visual closer, I move in, and if that's the mood I want to get there, then I just go boom, double size resolution. And literally, I mean, I haven't re-rendered anything. I've just moved the light, and maybe I've got that one and I want to do one with, I just press G here. I want this one with the light to be maybe a bit lower down to expressive light here. Okay, I'm being crazy now, but if that's where I wanted the light, then I move them. That gives me the different light and I capture the scene. It's as simple as that. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it. Look at these visuals. Oh, there's our cart. See, the guy looks very terrible with a low polygon and the maps are all messed up. But anyhow, I didn't use him in the scene because for other reasons. I actually think I'm going to select him and just delete him. He's in the way there. Because this is the one visual that I gave to the client that they wanted. And here now, let me just show you that if I feel there's too little light, there's light from the side here and light from the top, but too little light on this side because I haven't put any sort of screen textures on. What I can do is I can go F11, which is because I've been clicking in there. I can get a light, and let me just put the light here. Okay, put the light over there. The reason I can't see the light is because I pressed G and I pressed it there again. Okay, then I'm going to go into F11 again so I can see full screen and maybe move it across here. Okay. We can see what's going on the screen there now. Okay, and then I think what I'm going to do is on this light, I'm going to just switch it on to movable. Okay, and I'm going to turn down the power a little bit. Okay, and I press G so it will G and it will disappear there again, and then I can go back to my immersive mode of full screen, and there we have it. And I can basically shoot, if I want to have the light maps re-rendered from this light I just brought in, I can, but the lighting and the shadows are giving me quite a, because it's movable, it's giving me quite a realistic impression of what that area would be like. So I can basically move around in the end product, moving lights, checking if it looks better in that way, so forth, and then do the screen capture. So the screen capture is like 0 time compared to normal render. If I had to render this out, like I said, in other softwares where there's photons bouncing all over the place all the time, every time I move the camera it re-renders, it would be a nightmare. So I hope that this has been of some sort of insight to you. If you are doing a project sort of this kind of nature, you know, think of it again in the biggest units, make sure they come in, they're all clean. Then after that, start bringing in the smaller pieces. Then you add your lights, make them all movable, and make sure you have your sky dome in so you can add the ambient light. And then pretty much that's how you go, and then you can do your screen captures and send it to the client. I also did a video that's by using the sequencer. It's a very simple process. When they told me that, I thought, yeah, it's one of those things again. You say it's simple, but it's not. But it is quite simple once you get into it. And that I'll probably do sometime a bit later. Just do a little session on that. So yeah, hope this has been of value to you. Let me just go move this light. It's a bit too bright. Can you see the mood comes right back again? And then just click G to remove them. And then I can go 1, with there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all my camera positions And of course, if you want to snap it, wait a while in that position so that the auto exposure can kick in. Like here, these lights are a bit overburnt here, so I'll go take that one, not supposed to be there, this one. Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit too bright, so what I'll do is I'll just go out and go turn the brightness down on this light. Just create a little bit better mode there, or mood. Here we go. Okay, you see when I turn this down, this other light on this side has a different impact. So it all works together. But I mean, the key part is that you're able to move around, edit it to where you want to, and then basically start to do the screen grabs as you want to. Okay, so I hope that has been of value to you and you've learned something, even if one little piece of the information helps somebody. I'm sure that will be something that I've been able to achieve there. Thanks again, and hope you learn something and advance in your skill set of using SketchUp and Unreal. Have a fantastic day and God bless.